This is the Rebellious Wellness Over 50 podcast for women over 50 who have a lot of living yet to do, who want to enjoy the ride for as long as they can in good health and with a sense of humor, maybe a little wine. I'm Gregory Ann Cox, and I believe it's time to bust the myth that aging equals decline in every area of life. Nonsense. I would say something else, but I'll keep it clean for now. Aging happens, but it doesn't have to ruin your life. You just need to get a little rebellious in your approach. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rebellious Wellness Over 50. And I have to say, Happy New Year. It's 2023 officially, 2 days in. And I'm kicking off this year with Dr. Jeff Fisher, who is a chiropractor extraordinaire who has created a tool to help alleviate chronic pain. But first, I would like to welcome you, Jeff. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I've been a chiropractor for the majority of my life now, over 32 years. My godfather was a chiropractor for about 40 years. And I originally was exposed to chiropractic because I had migraine headaches when I was young. And I remember having headaches, but then I just never remember having them again. And how the story goes is my dad used to sneak me to see who I called my Uncle Dennis, my dad's best friend. And Dennis used to adjust me behind my mom's back because my mother was afraid for me to be adjusted. And my headaches went away. It was it was probably more of an amazing experience for my parents. They had to deal with a young child suffering from pain on somewhat of a frequent basis, but it changed my life for a vast majority of reasons why I got into chiropractic. So early on, before I even graduated from high school, I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I graduated and started practicing actually at the age of 24. Back then, you could do year-round school and get out of it really, really quick. And I've been practicing ever since. I've been very, very fortunate. My practice close to where I grew up, where we live. So my family and friends and people in the community are my patients. They're like my extended family, which has been just an amazing experience for me. And now we're hoping that our youngest son is actually going to be a doctor of osteopathic medicine and possibly take over my practice maybe 5 or 6 years from now. So I've got 5 or 6 more years I need to hold on before I can retire.
I know on your About page, you talk about your children and how you're looking forward to the empty nest syndrome, but oh, by the way, you're still going to be worrying about where they are, who they're with, and will they get home safe?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We love them gone and love them when they come back, and then we love them when they leave again.
Oh, yeah. We have grandchildren already, so I know that feeling of we love them when they come with the kids, and then nice when they all fly away again.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, so I know that there are listeners who don't really have a full understanding of chiropractic. They might think it's an adjustment for an injury-related pain, or some people may even know that it's a maintenance thing, but why chiropractic for whole health?
Well, we have a different perspective of health than maybe your run-of-the-mill or average provider. We don't do drugs. We try and help people get off of medication because we're interested in our patients more in the framework of the human body from a neurological and structural standpoint to help the body function at its maximum capacity. And when the body can function the way God or whoever you want to say created us, when we function our optimal working levels, then we're less susceptible to disease, we're less susceptible to injuries. And you can prevent and fight many, many things by just treating the body at its very basis and core. And also, too, true sense of chiropractic is not treating how you feel per se. It's not treating the symptoms. It's not treating the aftermath. Chiropractic is trying to go to the core, the source, the origin of what is causing dysfunction in the human body. So ultimately, the best way to treat the human body from our perspective is to identify issues that need to be corrected and fixed, fix them, and then maintain them or prevent them from coming back.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody were to be in that preventive mode mindset and they don't really have any kind of pain, would they start with a chiropractor anyway?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. The most optimal use of chiropractic is not just pain relief. We're not pain relief doctors. We are preventative care providers because we're always working on enhancing the function of the human body. So, you know, I don't care who you are. I mean, even if you're Tom Brady, and Tom Brady would probably admit this too. Tom Brady can always be better, and he's always striving to be better. And all of us are the same. Just because there's an absence of pain, it doesn't mean your body is functioning at its maximum capacity. Unfortunately, so many disease processes like cancer, heart disease, even diabetes, they can be going on before you are even aware that you have it. You can't rely solely upon how you feel. There are so many other things that we need to look further at ourselves to make sure that we're functioning at our maximum capacity. So that's what chiropractic is really, truly. If you're going to use it to its maximum power, that's the way you use it, not just waiting for pain.
I know people like to say they got cracked. I went to the chiropractor and I got cracked because we do hear a sound, but you're not necessarily cracking anything. You're releasing something. Explain a little bit about what that is.
So, gosh, if I was at my office, I could show you this because I have little samples of rubber darts on mirrors and on glass pictures in my office. So literally what happens is, matter of fact, I do have a spine here because I'm a chiropractor, so I even have spines.
You have, even in your living room, you have a spine.
Even in my living room. So if you can see this right here, there's a little gap there. Okay. Well, where those two bones come together, if you thought of it like a water balloon super glued to both sides, when they get compressed like this, okay, now let's see if I can pull this off. And then when we release it, you hear that vacuum release. That is what you're hearing in the human body. And there have been a couple of studies done years ago that the louder the pops and the more pops, it actually shows that the spine is healthy. So the popping sound that people are afraid of is actually a really, really good thing because it means your joints are hydrated and there's a ton of fluid in there. As they become more dehydrated through the process of degeneration, you get less and less pops because there's no fluid. So that popping sound is actually a really, really good thing. And it's not the bones cracking or breaking, but it is actually that vacuum release. So
that's good to know, because when I do certain spinal twists, if I'm doing a yoga class, if I'm on the floor and I get it, and I can really get it, and it feels good actually, but good to know that it's not a bad thing.
No, not a bad thing at all.
Talk about circulation and inflammation in the body can also be helped by having a healthy spine.
Definitely. So, there's been so much information over probably the past 5 to 10 years about hydration and pH levels in the body. I have always made time to study the disc or intervertebral disc and traction or decompression. And the most recent one I just did, it was incredibly interesting, where it talked about how the pH of the center nucleus, which is inside the middle of that disc right there, those pH levels and the hydration of the disc is critical for the life of the disc. So, when you're talking about the whole body and making sure, one, we're hydrated. Two, another thing that was really incredible was smoking. smoking has one of the most adverse effects to the nucleus of our discs, which is incredible because it's all about the vascularity and the diffusion of water into the disc, because the disc itself doesn't have any direct blood supply. So it has to kind of draw and suck water in. And that's done by pumping, compressing, decompressing throughout the day. But when you smoke and when you're dehydrated, you can't get enough fluid inside the center of that nucleus. And then that disc starts to degenerate. And then you can have pain, you can have dysfunction, you can start shrinking in height. And it starts a process with momentum that you can't return. At least we don't know that at this point. You can't return it back to normal, but it can totally be prevented if you do the proper things and keep the proper lifestyle in place. But yeah, so hydration, nutrition are so vital for our spinal health.
And when you talk about pH, do you recommend the alkaline diet or to eat an alkaline?
Honestly, I don't know enough about that. I'll tell you this, my wife had melanoma. She was diagnosed with melanoma a few years back, and she has done some incredible things with changing her diet. So she has gone towards the pH waters. She's been taking collagen. Her nutritional levels are incredibly high because she's working towards preventing the cancer from ever coming back again. Yeah. And I don't mind saying my wife looks fantastic. I mean, she's always been beautiful to me, but she looks amazing. Just turned 56. I'm not going to divulge her age, but we're close. And she looks fantastic. And I think a lot of it has been probably because of that pH water and the nutritional supplements that she's been taking.
Yeah, I think you said earlier before we started recording about how you're going back to some things you knew and putting them in place for your body and your life. And I feel like at this midpoint, it happens to a lot of people. They say like either they want to start taking better care of themselves, or they used to do more, but then life got in the way. And now they're thinking, might want to take a look at some of this stuff and put it back in my life.
Definitely. And it's never too late.
Right.
Some people just give up and they just say, I can't do it. I can't do it. You can do it. And the body has an incredible ability to restore normal function. If you just eliminate whatever stresses and problems that are, causing it to dysfunction, you can restore it back to normal. Not everything, but in a lot of cases you can. You
said, I'm only alive as I'm active. And I love that. And I think it's just worth putting out there into the ether. You should do a meme on it, because when you say some people just give up, I think if it's been hard for somebody to exercise in their 30s and 40s, or they didn't like it, or they never had a chance to learn how to do something that felt good, it gets even harder, I think, to decide and then commit and start small, or before you give up, like do a little and you don't like it, try something else. But it is so true. If we're not moving, we're really not fully living.
Life is motion and motion is life.
Yeah.
It really is. We used to get chased by dinosaurs. So
I'm really glad that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, if you couldn't move fast enough, you weren't going to make it. Motion is so critical to the normal function of our body and health. That's obviously why we as chiropractors, we think we got the market cornered, because we're always trying to enhance the motion of the human frame. My traction unit too is however you can maintain, increase, enhance motion in your life, whether you're getting adjusted in an office, you're stretching, you're doing your traction and decompression, going to yoga, doing Pilates, whatever it might be. If it's enhancing your flexibility, your ability to move, it's enhancing life, and you have to do it.
Let's talk about traction, because when I hear the word traction, I think of a body cast. I know that's not what you're talking about.
No. Yeah. Matter of fact, the traction that I had created, I invented, it's a new form of traction. And this right here is basically the machine, the mechanism to
Wow.
it. And all I'm doing there is I'm just pulling these latex bungees that are housed inside these plastic cups. You have one end that can attach to your head, and then the other end attaches to a doorknob, or you can loop it around any type of anchor point. And this traction, I got a great story behind it. I've had 3 surgeries on my neck. So I know neck's as good as any human on the planet, unfortunately for me. I was a horribly slow football player back in the day, but I was in so much agony at a certain point. This is over 20 years ago. I had to rig something up at my house. So I just kept experimenting with different things until I kind of came up with the very first prototype and hooked it up to the railing upstairs at our house. And I was able to fall asleep for the first time, like in days. And my wife just put a blanket over me, just left me there. I woke up and I started to think about this. Like, God, you know what? I might really have something here. And I was able to implement it in my practice and experiment on my patients with it. And we had great success. My patients have given me such incredible input on how to change some of the prototypes and what seemed to be the most successful things that they felt that they were able to utilize this at home and travel wherever they go. Really, the key to traction itself is the frequency and the consistency of it, because we have gravity that's fighting against us every single day of our lives. I'm not sure if you know this, if you're aware of it, or if any listeners are, that we are the tallest that we are in the morning when we wake up. And that's because we go through a natural process of decompression at night. Just like the astronauts that went into space, they had to end up making their spacesuits about an inch taller, because the first crews that went up after they spent a certain amount of time in space, they're like, oh my God, my helmet, my suit's too small. They couldn't figure out why, because they lived in a non-gravity state.
Oh, interesting.
So their discs rehydrated and they got taller. So traction, if you're able to use it in the morning after you wake up or at night before you go to bed, you're literally accelerating the decompression process where you're rehydrating discs and making yourself taller. But I know the height is important for most people, but it's the hydrostatic pressure, the fluid pressure inside the disc that's the most important thing, because it prolongs the longevity, the life of your discs, which in turn helps prolong your motion, ability to do things, because it takes pressure off of nerves, opens up your joints. So traction is actually a very important component to life, and not many people really know about it until they do it and they say, wow, I feel so good. And it's because it has a direct relation to the health of our discs and fighting against gravity.
I know on your website you have a video. FisherChiropracticInc.com is where you can go see a video about Dr. Fisher's traction contraption. And it really is that simple. And you can use it on your neck and your hips.
Yeah. Low back. Yep. Yeah. And we figured out a way how you can use it on your upper back too. So it's neat. This has been a great experience for me, because I'm a chiropractor. I'm not an entrepreneur per se for direct to consumer marketing and things like that. But I just came up with a great idea. I got lucky, hit the spot. But we have such a great community of patients or users, customers that buy our traction units, and they use them. And they try new things and they send me emails and we talk back and forth. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great idea. So then I'll go back to the drawing board and do some research in my office and look to see if that works and if it's viable and safe. And I go, you know what? Boom. So we just put out another video on how to use the lumbar traction for your upper spine and your thoracic region too. Wow. So there are a lot of applications to the invention that I made, and we're always trying to work on expanding it and helping people in every way we can.
It seems like such a simple thing. And you said you could travel with it too. It's folded up and put it in your suitcase.
Yeah, I can wrap my fists around it, and it weighs less than a pound, if you believe it or not. And
Wow.
the crazy thing about it is it's so lightweight, but it has, right now, we think still has the strongest pull force of any home traction device made, because it can pull up to 50 pounds of pull force, which is the maximum capacity the human neck can handle. But it's tiny. You can just put it in your purse or a bag and you can travel with it, which makes it super convenient and makes it super effective.
Now, let's just say somebody had a car accident, whiplash.
Yeah.
And would you suggest they just get this and self-treat, or should they go see a professional first?
Well, whenever you're involved in any type of acute trauma, you should get looked at first. You really should, just in case, especially in a car accident. I've done a ton of car accident cases over the years. I've been an expert witness in over 100 jury trials. And when you're in a car accident, it's a legal case. So to protect yourself and even protect whoever is at fault, even if you're not at fault, just to protect everybody, you should go get checked out by a professional and honestly have x-rays taken. X-rays is a super easy way, quick, easy way to be evaluated. It's safe and you can find out a lot of information. You don't have to just jump into getting an MRI right away, but just x-ray plain films themselves are very, very helpful in diagnosing and determining the severity of your situation. But then afterwards, after you've been evaluated and you're shown to be safe, you can definitely use the traction, unless you had like a fracture or some type of instability. Traction is super, super safe. And that's why we're able to sell it direct to consumers. It's really, really safe because it's pulling bones apart. It's not pushing bones together. So it's very, very safe.
I know at your practice, you talk a lot about, you mentioned the word just now, stability and core, and you use Pilates as part of your physical therapy, which I'd never heard before, which makes sense because it is such a core strengthening kind of exercise. But one of the things you said was, don't expect this to go quick, something like that. When talking about the post-recovery period of anything, when you're doing the PT or doing the Pilates. And I think we all just want to quit after like a couple of sessions, don't we? So, talk a little bit about the importance of sticking with a protocol.
Well, to be a successful patient, you must have patience. I use this analogy in my practice because I practice a different type of chiropractic care that not all chiropractors utilize. It's called corrective care. It's based upon orthodontistry and the bracing of teeth, believe it or not. And the reasoning behind it is they found out, I don't know how many years ago, the outer fibers of our disc are almost identical to our gums. They're very, very strong connective tissues that hold our teeth in place and to some degree hold our spines in place. So in my office, I always use this analogy. I'm like putting braces on your teeth or your spine because I'm trying to get the spine straighter and straighter. Okay. We use massage, physical therapy as brushing and flossing. And then we use Pilates as the retainer. Like after you take your braces off, you wear the retainer for the next year or so to make sure it doesn't shift. So you have to go through certain phases of care to truly get the maximum benefit and get to a point where you're not going to be spinning your wheels. You're not going to just keep going backwards and having to start over again. But initially you go through a corrective phase. Let's say you have curve and then you get adjusted in only one direction to try and get it straight. Okay. And you might use some physical therapy and massage to help with that. But then after that, you've got to work on strengthening and conditioning the muscles around the spine. And that's where Pilates comes in. Pilates it's a fantastic balance, coordination, strength, and conditioning type system. It can be done on a horizontal basis, not vertical. So it really protects the spine. But we've had it in my office now for, 15, 20 years, and it's been incredibly successful. This is an example. We had a woman, she's amazing. She's had 3 children. She's fluctuated in weight, dramatically after each of her births. And now her children are as old as mine. Her oldest are in their 20s, almost 30 years old. And she looks amazing. She's very diligent, very, very dedicated to doing the Pilates because she's had so much success. She knows if she keeps doing it, it's going to work. So it is difficult, for some people to stay committed to exercise and nutritional programs and things like that. But once you get past a certain point, then it gets easier because then you see, wow, this is really, really working. It becomes exciting. Then you want to do it.
Exactly. Results are the best motivation.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Mm-hmm. So you did a curve thing with as if the spine had a curve. And I was going to ask about scoliosis. So I have a curve in the thoracic area. What do you got for me? Anything?
Well, yeah, without a doubt. Like I said, I practice a different type of chiropractic care. There was a research group called Chiropractic Biophysics. I think they were originally out of Alabama. And the original doctor was actually an engineer. And so he came up with this incredibly complex system of correcting the spine. And it really, really works. You can correct scoliotic curves. You can restore the normal curves in the neck and the low back. It just takes a long time, but you can do it. I use this as an example. In my office, I only adjust against the curves. I don't just adjust everybody exactly the same. My adjustments are based upon my x-rays. And once we see the patient and I sit down and we actually look and see how their unnatural curve is, and I tell them, well, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to keep adjusting in this direction over and over and over. Every single time I see it, that's all we're going to do. They're like, okay, cool. And then we take before, during, and after x-rays, and you can see the curves getting better and better and better. It can't happen for everybody, but for a vast majority of people that don't have really, really progressive degenerative changes, you can correct the spine.
And the amazing rotation too.
Yes. Oh yeah, without a doubt. Because when you look at this, from a 3-dimensional standpoint, XYZ axis, you have the rotation, we've got flexion extension. Okay. Let's see. We got the rotation, flexion extension, and then we've got the lateral bending. When you adjust, I guess I do like this here. When we adjust, we're handling a rotational component. And if you do it properly, you can be correcting a lateral bending component at the same time. It is complex, but when you see it on x-rays, it actually simplifies things and makes it easier for a patient to understand. You feel it. You actually feel the physics behind the adjustment. The patient's like, whoa. Wow, I can tell that is going to help.
Wow.
And then when they start feeling better, which is done pretty quickly, they're all in.
Yeah, 100%. I used to go to a chiropractor all the time when I was a chef. If you think about a chef, the table is 20 inches below, and our heads are constantly down. And I had chronic neck pain and whatever, but I was dedicated, committed to being in that office once a week. And it definitely helped.
And that's what we call now tech neck. Because of the cell phones on the computers. It's a real condition. It's a real situation causing massive problems with people's necks. And that's like another reason why my traction that I invented, I designed it so it would be at a 30-degree angle where it would attach to a doorknob. And I made wedges too that go underneath the shoulders to help force that natural curve back in the neck because we're losing it. And it's really become like an epidemic for the most part because it's degenerating the neck so much faster than before. And I see patients in their 20s that they have a reversal of, like, if I'm here on the side, if you can see me, our natural curve is supposed to go like this, but I see patients come in and their curve is going forward like this. And when I'm taking the x-rays, I'm telling them, you just stand normal. And they just stand in a normal posture. And then we look at the curve and it's going the opposite direction.
Wow.
And they're having massive issues.
Are they also with the rounded shoulders? I see a lot of people that don't. We grew up, my mother was like, straighten up your shoulders, young woman, you know. And I'm glad she did, but I see a lot of, and that will eventually cause some kind of problem with the back, I would imagine.
Now you're getting into my wheelhouse.
Okay.
So, you can see me here.
Yep.
So normal curve. And as soon as I do this, my shoulders will automatically start to rotate forward because the weight of the head, our average weight of our head is about 10 pounds. It's like almost like a bowling ball of that weight going forward. And then wherever your head goes, your shoulders and spine is going to go too. So as it goes forward, you're going to start to get that rounding of the shoulders. But that's why this wedge is so simple. And honestly, the simplistic explanations or solutions to problems are the absolute best. And even just this, having a wedge underneath the back of your shoulders when you're laying down so your head can go further back with the traction is incredibly successful. There were studies shown that traction under extension, which is basically putting the neck in the natural curve the way it's supposed to be, the results were the best. And there's a lot of science behind that in the fibers inside the disc and how they're aligned. It's kind of a cool time to be in where we've had all these different theories and philosophies from years ago in chiropractic. And now the science is coming out and they just fit together just as we had always thought and said and preached that it did. Now we know we were right.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of a cool time to be in chiropractic right now.
Well, it's also cool. I was writing something about, it's funny how ancient wisdom has suddenly, because of epigenetics and all these sciences that are now so commonly taught and studied, and even by lay people, it's like, oh, but those people knew that thousands of years ago, and we kept saying, nah, can't happen. Nah, that's not the way the world is.
Yeah. Well, truth is like a laser beam. It goes on to infinity and beyond.
Yeah. Except in certain circles, but we're not going to go there.
True.
So give us something to start our new year on for our health. Give us a recommendation of some kind.
So I would say, gosh, that's really a great question. How about three things? Okay. One, about a year ago, I started having water with me everywhere I go. I'm constantly drinking water. I've literally converted myself from, I don't really drink a whole lot of anything else but water. I rarely ever drink a soda. I might have iced tea. I might have a little coffee, but I don't even drink milk anymore. So if you can just start creating a habit of carrying water around with you all the time and drinking this over anything else, hugely important because you're going to stay more hydrated. Hydration is really, really important. So I'd say there's one. Two, I guess depend upon where you live in the nation, because I'm in California, so I have the luxury of being able to get up for a walk every morning. And at worst, it's 55 degrees.
Freezing.
I know, yeah, right? Exactly. But if there is some way you could exercise at least 30 minutes a day, whether it's going on a walk, riding a stationary bike, doing push-ups on your knees, doing air squats, doing sit-ups or leg lifts, something just to increase your heart rate and your circulation for at least 30 minutes. Okay. So hydration, at least a little bit of exercise every day. Okay. And then the third thing is motion and flexibility. I stretch more now than I had since I was playing baseball and football back in the day, where they forced us to stretch before every practice and every game. I am constantly stretching, trying to bend forward and touch my toes. I get inside of a door frame and I'm stretching my shoulders. I'm moving my hips. I'm always trying to increase range motion. And of course, I have the luxury of having my traction at my office. I have my traction at home. So I'm always trying to utilize that spinal health and decompressing my spine, which adds to my ability to move. So those three things, they're really simple.
Yeah.
They're really easy to do. And then you will have a healthier year than in 2023 than you did in 2022 if you just do those three things.
And chalk it up to self-care, right? That's another thing. I'm encouraging all my women listeners to put themselves at the top of the list rather than the bottom. I know it's not easy to do, but they say that the times of the day that are most manageable are the first thing in the morning and the last part of the day. So if you can schedule your walk, your exercise, your sit-ups, whatever, first thing or late in the afternoon, whenever you can get some time away, more likely to happen. So
yeah, for sure. And to add to that, I've been married for 25 years now. So I've learned the power and strength and abilities of my wife and how smart she is. You, as women, you have an innate intelligence. You have a radar. You have a detector. You have to trust your instincts. When you feel like something just ain't right, it ain't right. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. You got to trust your instincts.
I love that.
Yeah.
Perfect place to end. Mm-hmm. Thank you for honoring the women. And it is really that intuition thing is,
yeah.
You wouldn't be here
without them. I wouldn't be here without them.
That's actually very true. Literally, figuratively. Anyway, I will have the link to your website and to the page with the traction device on it, on this page, podcast page. And I encourage everybody to check out Dr. Fisher's website, and you can learn things there too, on top of what we already talked about. If you're lucky enough to live in Irvine, California, you can actually go see him. Yeah.
Anytime. We love you coming in.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Fisher. Appreciate your time.
No problem. I'll create a code for anybody who listens if they want to purchase a Fisher traction device.
Okay, awesome. I'll be your first customer. I'm always trying to do stuff to take care of my spine. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Kind of can't walk around without it. So
you can't live without it.
Okay. All right, everybody. I'll be back next week with another excellent guest. Be well till then.
Hey, everybody, I have a favor to ask. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the other episodes that you listen to, please leave a review on your favorite site for listening to podcasts. You can also leave a comment on my website, where you'll find the podcast at the podcast tab or under any of the guest podcast episode pages. Thanks. It means a lot to me, and I appreciate you. Be well till next time.